You know what's more satisfying than watching a politician fumble their own policies? Watching them try to pretend it was all part of a master plan, as if we just collectively forgotten everything they said last month. And today, today, we got a political car crash so gloriously messy, you'll want to rewind and watch it in slow motion. Helen Whately just took Rachel Reeves' so-called economic U-turn and turned it into a full-blown political demolition derby.
The Supreme
If
Court
Reeves
has
thought
just
she could
formally
swerve public
rejected
opinion
Keir
with a
Starmer's
smile
government's
and a
attempt to
spreadsheet,
imprison
Whately showed
protesters
up
in
with
Northern
receipts,
Ireland.
a megaphone, and zero
This
patience
ruling
for spin.
ignited a
Reeves,
wave of
the
chaos.
chancellor who once pitched
Fires
herself
broke
as the
out.
sober accountant
Riot
in a room
police
full of gamblers, just pulled a stunt so tone-deaf it practically required subtitles. She slashed winter fuel payments, insisted it was the only responsible choice, then pirouetted months later to restore them, claiming it was all thanks to Labour's new grip on the economy. And she said it with a straight face. That's the kind of narrative flip that would give Olympic gymnasts vertigo, but this isn't just about a benefit policy. It's about the audacity of trying to sell chaos as competence. That's where Helen Whately enters the scene, not with bluster, but with precision. While Reeves was busy dressing up a backtrack as economic brilliance, Whately picked it apart with the sharpness of a courtroom cross-examination. You could practically hear Parliament inhale when she dropped the line, "Who does she think she's fooling?" It landed like a hammer and no one, not even Reeves, seemed to have an answer. What made Whately's takedown so lethal wasn't just the accusation. It was the structure. She didn't just slap a headline accusation on Labour's forehead and call it a day. She laid out the facts, one painful statistic at a time, each one a nail in the coffin of Labour's economic credibility. Inflation? Up. Unemployment? Also up. Borrowing? Through the roof. All of it wrapped in the uncomfortable truth that while Labour claims they've got the wheel, the economy's veering into oncoming traffic. Let's talk numbers, shall we? Consumer price index inflation is sitting at 2.8%. Unemployment has crept up to 4.5%, and government borrowing has hit £148 billion for the 2024 to 2025 period. That's £17 billion higher than the year before. And in the middle of this fiscal fever dream, Reeves wants applause for changing her mind? That's not economic stewardship. That's like throwing a brick through your own window and then asking for a medal because you finally decided to call a glazier. Whately wasn't done with just the ledger, though. She went deeper, pulling the conversation back to the lives behind the numbers. Hundreds of thousands of pensioners suffered through last winter without the aid they relied on. Over 50,000 more pensioners slipped into poverty. Another 100,000 ended up in A/and E. These aren't abstract figures, they're people. Human beings who paid the price for a chancellor playing chicken with the cost of living crisis. This isn't just economic mismanagement. It's a moral failure. And Whately didn't let Reeves forget that for a second. But the real sting. Reeves didn't just reverse her policy. She tried to repackage it as evidence of strength. It's the political equivalent of setting a house on fire, then turning up with a garden hose and shouting, "Look at me. Crisis averted." And yet, despite the smoke still rising from the ruins, she really seemed to believe people would buy it. What made Whately's rebuke so devastating was how calm, calculated, and coherent it was. No shouting. No drama. Just facts and a quiet insistence that reality matters. She didn't deny that the reversal was welcome. On the contrary, she said so clearly. But she made sure no one missed the absurdity of Labour patting themselves on the back for reversing a policy they introduced in the first place. It's like watching someone throw a boomerang at a pensioner and then acting like a hero when they catch it midair before it hits. The deeper point Whately drove home was about preparation. Labour didn't stumble into this mistake. They sprinted toward it. And the idea that they've now found clarity is as laughable as it is insulting. She argued, with the cool tone of someone who's watched this circus act one too many times, that the hard policy work should have been done in opposition. That if you're writing your plan after taking office, you're not governing, you're guessing. And if you're guessing on issues that affect millions of elderly Britons in the middle of a cost of living crisis, you've already failed. Even more damaging than the numbers was the image Whately painted of elderly people wrapped in blankets, choosing between heating and eating while their government flip-flops on basic support. She took Labour's policy and made it visceral, personal. These weren't anonymous stats. They were stories of suffering caused by arrogance and a lack of foresight. And then she twisted the knife, pointing out that even Labour's own backbenchers were rebelling against the winter fuel policy. When your own MPs are campaigning against your decisions, that's not just a bad day at the office. It's a full-blown leadership credibility crisis. It's one thing for the opposition to call you out. It's another for your colleagues to join the chorus, in political terms. This whole episode is a mess. In public relations terms, it's a catastrophe. And in moral terms, it's indefensible. The message Labor tried to push, "We've got a grip now, don't worry," is undone not just by the data, but by the lived reality of the people most affected. And just to rub salt in the wound, the conservatives, yes, the conservatives, look positively competent by comparison. Whately even acknowledged that universal winter fuel payments aren't perfect and that maybe millionaires shouldn't be receiving them. But what's the difference? The Tories thought through how to handle the reform. Labor swung the axe first and worried about the damage later. That's the real difference here. Not just who made the policy, but how it was made, how it was reversed, and what it says about leadership. This is supposed to be Labor's honeymoon period, the time where the public still gives them the benefit of the doubt. But if this is how they handle core cost of living policies when they're just getting started, what happens when things get tougher? What happens when the real decisions, the big, thorny ones, start stacking up? And don't even try to argue that the broader economic picture justifies the chaos. Because guess what? The Office for Budget Responsibility is projecting that unemployment will peak at 4.5% next year. Inflation could hit 3.8% by July. The IMF has slashed the UK's growth forecast from 1.6% to 1.1%. That's not stabilization. That's a slow-motion economic train wreck. IT doesn't matter how many talking points Labor tries to polish. You can't sandpaper a landslide. And Whately knows it. What makes this political beatdown truly artful is how little of it was about party lines. Whately didn't come across as just another Tory taking shots. She came across as someone simply pointing out the facts, holding the government to account in the way the public expects MPs to do. No theatrics, just cold, hard truths. And the quiet implication that if Labor can't manage a basic support scheme without causing chaos, what chance do they have with the rest of the economy? When the government claims it's restoring order while the public sees disorder, that's not just a narrative failure, it's a leadership failure. And Whately just made sure we all saw it for what it is. So while Rachel Reeves might still be hoping the electorate sees her as the steady hand in uncertain times, Helen Whately just ripped that illusion apart. With facts. With clarity. And with a cutting line that'll probably be replayed in political highlight reels for months. The question, who does she think she's fooling, isn't just rhetorical anymore. It's the one echoing through every household that went cold last winter.